Apologize if I'm a little late. I'm in another committee hearing, important business, FAA reauthorization. We all want to have safe flights. I got involved with this real early on. I was in Congress for 3 days. I think, Marjorie, you too. We were in Congress for 3 days when this all took place. It's probably the last member, if not the last member on the House floor that day. I'm an old law enforcement officer for 30 years as a sheriff of a large county for 8 years. So I stood at the back doors, the main back doors leading into the chambers. Had a conversation with an individual on the outside, and anyway, it was a few weeks after that I was approached by then Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy asking me to read the Senate version, the Senate reports, because the Senate had some hearings early on. I think it was in March and April. So Kevin McCarthy approached me and asked me to read all those reports and write a report on what my feelings and my thoughts were because of my extensive law enforcement experience. And I did so. I provided him a 14-page document. And when I looked at the report and the OIG recommendations and everything that I saw, what was wrong that day, January 6th, folks, was a law enforcement failure, an epic law enforcement failure. When Kevin, Leader McCarthy, now Speaker McCarthy, asked me to be one of the 5 on the January 6th Select Committee. I was honored to be asked, and then obviously Nancy Pelosi did what nobody else has done as Speaker, rejected Minority Leader's picks to be on a Select Committee. So we weren't on the committee, and she picked a couple of rhinos and that whole committee is all about Donald Trump. Anyway, so when you look at January 6th and you read these special event assessments, because I spent a lot of time on this, and when you look at the December 15th, the December 30th, and the January 3rd special events assessment, we knew that things weren't going to get ugly up here. It was quite clear. We knew that the Capitol itself, they meaning the leadership of the Capitol Police, i.e. an Assistant Chief Pittman, who's no longer here, they had all the intelligence. They had all the intelligence that it was going to get ugly up here. Extremist groups from both sides, white supremacist groups, high propensity for violence. They knew thousands of people were coming. And it was glaring in that January 3rd report. It was on page 12 out of the 14. And it said things are getting stupid. And I believe, me personally, I believe that they hid the intelligence. It's like they wanted this to happen. I say that because you remember Harry Dunn, one of the first officers, he testified, he was one of the 4. Harry Dunn's testimony says, he goes, I didn't think it was going to be any different than any other day. Kind of like the big marches they had November and December, relatively nonviolent. He didn't think this was going to be like any other day. And so when you look at the hours and hours of video, you see most of the Capitol Police officers don't have any type of shields or stuff. It was the Metropolitan Police that came prepared. But the U.S. Capitol Police, I spent some time and I focused a lot of my time on the shooting of and the killing of Ashley Babbitt. I document this very well. I was probably one of the first. I think, Paul, you said it as well. I believe Ashley Babbitt was murdered that day. Now, you say, well, how could you say that? I said, well, I'm a sheriff. I've had deputies shoot and kill people. I've had my own deputies shot and killed. The point is, I know a little bit about use of force. And what disturbed me about that investigation into Lieutenant Byrd is it never went to a grand jury. You want to have the vote of confidence of the American people. Send every law enforcement shooting, justified, questionable, whatever. Send it to a grand jury. It never went to a grand jury. Most of the people in the Capitol Police will even tell you. They'll tell you that, hey, this was a quick investigation. Lieutenant Byrd, and I hope when we have a new president in 2 years that he goes to a grand jury. That shooting should go to a grand jury. And that's my commitment to you, Ashley, to Ms. Babbitt. If I can do anything, that should go to a grand jury at a minimum. My point is I'm just going to leave you at this. When you look at those special event assessments in that January 3rd, I had an opportunity to talk to then the National Guard commander, and I said to him, I said, General, I said, if you read that report, the National Guard should have been on our nation's capital on January 4th. He agreed with me. If you would have read the report, it justified, the intelligence was there, and General Walker said to me, the National Guard would have been on our nation's capital on January 4th like the intelligence suggested. January 6th would have never happened. So then what happens? We win the House, and where does Miss Pittman go? She's got a nice cushy job now, UC Berkeley, making $200,000 a year. Nancy found her a job. Nancy found her a job. Apparently, Matt, I guess she was up here last week for House admin. I don't know, but I wish I had 5 minutes with her, because I'm telling you, if there's one person that to me could have prevented this from taking place, it's Miss Pittman, and she should be held accountable, because it was one of the darkest days in our nation's history. One of the darkest days, and they just sat on the intelligence. Shameful. We can never allow it to happen again. And I'm going to end with this, but Marjorie was talking about everybody, Donald Trump speaking in the ellipse. The first breach that took place at about 1:10 p.m., Donald Trump was still speaking. It was a 22-block walk. It takes you a half hour to walk from, so no. And you see Ray, Mr. Ray, right? Whispering the guy's ear, boom. And they put bicycle racks. Think about that. Tens of thousands of people coming up. What are we going to have for a perimeter? A damn bicycle rack that couldn't keep your cat in your yard, right? I mean, none of this just made sense. So these are some of the things we wanted to do on that select committee, because I thought I could have exposed them for who they truly are. This is all about Donald Trump coming back in 2024. Shame on them. But the greatest leader in my lifetime, folks, keep the faith. He's coming back.